Well, hello everybody and welcome to a triathlon special on Eurosport this evening. We were hoping to show you 1 hour of highlights of today's World Championships over the long distance at Nice, but unfortunately we've had a few problems, so we've split the program into three. We're going to start off with highlights from last year's event, then we're going to show you this year's long distance European Championships from Yuma in Germany, and finally the final part, well, that'll be today's race at Nice. We've managed to put something together, and I really do hope you enjoy this evening's performance. So this is last year's. This is the first official long distance World Championships. Of course, Nice has been going for many years. It's been very popular with the athletes, and it really does have a classic distance. 4-kilometer swim, about the only race in the sport that has a 4-kilometer swim, 120 kilometers of biking and 30 kilometers of run to finish. And indeed last year they did change the run course. It used to be 15 Ks down the Promenade des Anglais towards Antibes, turn around and come back again, but last year it was 4 laps on the course instead. This year, in fact, as you'll see later, they changed it to a 2-lapper, but these are the 1994 highlights. And of course we're going to start with the 4-kilometer swim. Previous best times, well, 1986, Mark Allen, the American, went 5 hours, 46 minutes and 10 seconds. And Aaron Baker in 1988 went 6 hours, 27 minutes and 6 seconds. This is the money they're going for, something like $100,000 up for grabs last year, just $75,000 up for grabs this year. But this is the men's start. Normally, we're used to one start. That's Yves Cordier in the middle there, by the way. Scott Molina, who won this race back in, well, was it 87? Then got disqualified for, well, he didn't get disqualified here, I don't think, but he certainly got done for drug testing, drug doping. That's Cordier again. So this is the elite start, and you can see the Marshal. Well, I think there's an omen there, isn't there? Or Morrow. Get out of the way, Marshal. Let them get on with the business. But normally, the 2,000 athletes or so start in one. But last year, they changed it because this was the World Championship. So the World Elite men went off first, and then the ladies went a few minutes later. So this was the men's start. Something like 150 athletes from countries all over the world. Something like 35 different countries were here competing. And, well, the weather wasn't too pleasant. It was dry before the start, but during the swim section, as you'll see, it really, the heavens did open. Must admit, I've covered this event for many years, and I can't remember such bad weather as we had in 1994. But what we did have was some great swimming by the French swimmer, Jérôme Sanson. All this year, we've been watching his brother, Benjamin Sanson, setting some great standards. This is the women's field getting ready. Oh, there's Erin Baker, the record holder here. The Mouton twins are right beside her. We saw just Karen Smyers just to the left of the picture, 2:30. But this is Erin Baker, the triathlete of the decade in the 80s. I'm not going to argue with that statement, but it was voted by Triathlete magazine. They gave it to her. And for the men, if I recall, it was Mark Allen. Both champions here at Nice. In fact, only one European has ever won this event. That was Rob Burrell back in, what, 1988. Otherwise, it's been totally dominated by the Americans, except, I think in 87, Rick Wells, the New Zealander, won it. But in the men's division, Mark Allen, I think he's raced here 10 times and he won 10 times. So what a record. But it's Benjamin, or Jérôme Sanson, leading with the Australian Nick Croft behind. So this is the women's start. Select few. We've got something like 40 athletes in the women's start. Bearing in mind, it's the 4-kilometer swim. Water temperature, well, you can see wetsuits are allowed, so it's certainly below 20 degrees. The limit for the long distance event is about 16 degrees last year. And I think with the rain that we had during the swim section, it got a little colder. Only the chill factor made it so. So these are the women getting underway. They're chasing out the men. It's basically an out course. 500 meters. Remember, a few years ago, it used to be a turn after about 100 meters, but then they changed it, so they went out to 500 meters. But this is our men leader. It's still Jérôme Sanson. Nick Croft is in there. So is Simon Lessing of Great Britain. Yves Cordier is also in there, the sun goddess. Robin Brew, the Olympian, is also in that lead pack. So we've got some great swimmers in there and also some great triathletes. But it's Jérôme Sanson, national record holder for 1,500 meter for France a couple of years ago. His brother, I think, was ranked still ranked something top 15 in the world. So this is the final buoy, then it's, I say final, they've still got 2 kilometers along the beach to go, well just under 2 kilometers. So here they go, this is the lead pack of 5 with Jerome Sanson, the Frenchman, out front. We've got Simon Lessing is there, the far side of the picture, just easing over. Nearest the camera, that looks like Nick Croft. And although the weather wasn't too friendly, it was still good enough for our underwater cameras. You see the rain is just starting to come down as Jerome Sanson there pops his way back towards the finish. Classical long-distance start, very similar to Wolfgang Dietrich, of course, has been out of the water many times here. For lead woman was Rena Bradshaw. She set the pace throughout the 4-kilometer swim as the men now come up towards the end of that opening swim. So this is Sanson, the brother. His brother wasn't racing here today, but Jerome was certainly representing his country, France, for the first time in the long-distance championships. Because, of course, these were the first long-distance championships. This used to be classed as the World Championship for long distance back in the early days before the International Triathlon Union, the governing body since 1989, was formed. There was Nice and Hawaii, were both self-acclaimed long-distance championships. Nice dropped the name, but well, that's Croft coming out in 2nd place. Lessing was out in 3rd position, but it's Yves Cordier is in 4th, I think. But it's Jerome Sanson coming up now into the transition. Nick Croft is behind. You can see they've already grabbed their helmets. Compulsory, of course, in the sport of triathlon. Certainly compulsory on this course, because this really is a real roller coaster, 120 kilometers on the bike. This is Simon Lessing, though, coming out of the transition area. He's, what, in 3rd or 4th position at the moment, well into contention. He's hoping for a good race here. As our lead woman, Rena Bradshaw. Times, by the way, well, they're out in about 48 minutes. The women, they're out in about 52 minutes. That looks like Roel Christensen there of Norway, just in front. But this is Rena Bradshaw, the Australian. Did well on the World Cup last year over the, well, it was, I think we can still call it the Olympic distance, because that's what it was called then. We can't call it now, but we still do. So this is Bradshaw going through. Good support from many of the age groupers who still haven't started. Yves Cordier took the lead on the early part of the bike. He's done this on numerous times before, and his failing has always been on the run. He's tried and tried at Nice, but he's never quite done it. Best performance was back in 1992 when he was 2nd. This is Rena Bradshaw, first effort over this longer distance. She's more used to the shorter distance, so she's certainly faring well at the moment. Her countryman, Nick Croft, he's in 2nd position behind Yves Cordier as they make, or he starts the long climb up towards Gillette, Boyon, and then the descent down into Roquestron. Karen Smyers, though, the American, should I say, she went past Rena Bradshaw on the first climb. This is Karen Smyers, the 31-year-old from Lincoln, Massachusetts, graduate of Princeton University. She took the lead as Nick Croft stayed in 2nd place behind Cordier, and unfortunately for Simon Lessing, his hopes for a win were dashed. Not only did he have 1 puncher, but he had 2 punchers, and well, that was the end of his day for him. So it left Yves Cordier, and you can see the weather really is clamping in, or it clamped in last year, should I say. Fortunately, this year's race, the weather was a little better, as you'll see later. But this is Cordier on this classic bike course. In fact, many classic bike rides go over these hills in the Alpes Maritimes, and it certainly is unique within the sport. And for my money, this is the best bike course, the most interesting, the most testing, the challenging. It has everything. Long climbs, fast, steep descents. You have to be very good technically on the bike. You can see one of the problems is today, though, on the bend, it's a bit slippery and a slidey. And, well, there were many accidents, and in fact, we'll see a couple in this broadcast. But this is Cordier. He's still leading his merry way on the bike course as Isabelle Mouton. Well, she made her move on the bike section. She went past Bradshaw, and she's only got Karen Smyers now ahead of her. So Isabelle Mouton, the French lady from Annecy, one of the twins, she won this race last year. She's looking to do the same this year. This is Rob Burrell, Bobby Barrel. He's back in about 4th, 5th position at the moment, and he's coming now towards the descent before they climb back up to Gillette. And he's been very tentative indeed, and you can see why. Even the classic Rob Burrell comes adrift. But fortunately for Rob and all of us, he was safe. He had a bit of road rash, but he got up and he continued, as you'll see. But it's still Yves Cordier leading the men's division. This is him, the Sun Goddess. Best position, if I recall, in Ironman was 8th back in 1989, but it was 3rd at Nice in 88 and 91. Champion of Europe in Estoril. I was there. I remember that race well back in 1989. For me, that was a great race for Yves Cordier, and he's never really got back to that form. He really has suffered from injuries. He's got back problems, leg problems. He's had a couple of operations, but not Isabelle Mouton. 1994 was a great year for Isabelle Mouton, and I suppose this was her best race. Karen Smyers, well, she still led on the bike, but closely followed by Isabelle Mouton. And one thing Karen doesn't like is the slippery, slidey roads. You can see one of our competitors here has come to grief. He's had to retire, and I suppose that's the only way back. This is, well, there's another one going over. They really did go over like flies. Robin Brew only lasted, what, 2 meters, or 2 kilometers rather, down the Promenade des Anglais before he punctured, and I remember him throwing his bike down in disgust. He did have a great crash, I recall, what, back in 1989 or so. So that was Karen Smyers taking it nice and easy, because of course, after the 120 kilometers of biking, they've still got 30 kilometers of run to finish. But this is Yves Cordier, come down past the airport. He's back on the Promenade des Anglais as the waves crash in on the beach. It is normally filled with the sunbathers. Well, the sun goddess, he hasn't got the sun today, but Isabelle Mouton, she's certainly doing the business. So this is Mouton. She's taken the lead from Karen Smyers towards the latter part of the bike road, right, as Yves Cordier now comes back down the Promenade des Anglais to this huge transition area, something like 2,000 bikes in the transition, and that causes a problem in itself. You see all the cones, that's for the run once they finish. So the marshals are slowing Cordier down because there's a bit of a sharp turn before he turns into the transition. As with normal, the crowds were out in their force last year, out in their thousands to support, especially the local favourite, Yves Cordier. I remember when he moved to moved from Nice, to Monaco to race for them, but he still gets great applause in his home city. He really is a hero here, and they would love dearly for him to win this classic event of Europe. Many years it's been the ultimate European triathlon. So this is Yves Cordier setting off on the final 30-kilometer 4-lap bike ride. Second in Lothar Leder. He made his move towards the end of the bike ride, caught up Robbie Burrell. So after that tumble, the spill of Burrell, he's got up and he's come back in second position with the German Lothar Leder. But it's still Yves Cordier out on the 30-kilometer final run course as Isabelle Mouton now makes her way back down the Promenade des Anglais, preparing herself for the final run. Wearing that lovely, remember this noon last year, the French uniform, as the American Karen Smyers, she's in second position. This is the dreaded road rash of Rob Burrow, and the problem is, once you get this road rash, whenever you fall off, it always seems to be on the same place. I think they call it Sod's Law, don't they? But this is Mouton back into the transition area for the final time, and now it's a quick change, get the running shoes on, then out on the final 30-kilometer run. Bobby Barrel and Lothar Leder, the young German, they really did have a battle. Lothar Leder, he did everything last year. Remember, he went down to Strongman in Japan, he won there, and did a couple of Ironman. And then came and did Nice as well. Had a great race as well. So that's Cordier still leading. Smyers went out on the run in second position. But she's a minute or so behind Isabelle Mouton. In fact, she's more than that. She's about 5 minutes behind Isabelle Mouton. But this is Cordier. You can see he's a very upright runner. His stature is very upright because he's got this back problem, leg problem. He really is, well, in British terms, I suppose, a KOS. I won't tell you what the abbreviation means. But it wasn't long. It was after about 10 kilometers that he was passed by both Lothar Leder and Rob Burrell. And then they had to battle it out for this first world long-distance title. So Cordier, you can see he's very despondent. He's a bit upset, but he hasn't been able to hold on. But at least a couple of years ago, when Lessing and Allen went past him, I know he was sat on the road crying. This is Mouton now. Jonathan Asprey of Great Britain right beside her. So he's dropped a bit. This is his first attempt, though, here at Nice. Smyers was in second position, but it's Bobby Barrow. He's got away from Lothar Leder now on the closing stages of the 30-kilometer run. So the Flying Dutchman, he's flying perhaps to his second win here at Nice. He won back in, what, 1988, first European to win. In fact, the only European male ever to win this. This lady, Isabelle Mouton, was the first European woman to win. Lothar Leder is in second position, digging deep. Great performance by Lothar Leder. He's only dropped a few seconds from Rob Burrell, as Burrell now comes in to the huge support to be the 1994 ITU long distance world champion. And isn't he happy? It was going to be his swan song year, 1994. He told me at the end of the year he's retiring, but well, he's come out and he's racing again in 1995. You can't keep him off the swim, the bike and the run, the sport of triathlon. So that's Rob Burrell. He's home first in 5 hours, 59 minutes, 47 seconds. That reflects, I think, the bad weather, the slow bike course that they had today. And Lothar Leder, he's in second place, 6 hours and 18 minutes. So that really is a tremendous performance by the young German. And Yves Cordier, well, he had to be satisfied with third position. 6 hours, 3 minutes and 9 seconds. The Germans, well, they took the team gold last year in 1994 and looking to do it again this year in 1995. And for the woman, well, she took the lead towards the latter stages of the bike ride, stayed in front throughout the run, and coming home for the second consecutive year winner of Nice. But this time, she gets a world title. The world long-distance champion for women, Isabelle Mouton from France. 6 hours, 41 minutes and 50 seconds. Great performance by Isabelle Mouton from Annecy. In second place, Karen Smart, she held on to that second place quite easily. 6 hours, 57 minutes and 21 seconds. And in third place, France's Lydia Royce. And also Sophie Delamare of France finished fourth, which gave the French woman the world team title. So that's Smart's second, Isabelle Mouton for the women, and Rob Burrell for the men. Well, we'll go for our short break, and then we'll come back to highlights of the 1995 European Long Distance Championships, which were held up in Friesland at Juma in northern Germany. I'll leave you here with Rob Burrell and Isabelle Mouton, the world champions for 1994.